And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death.
So the first time God spoke to me, it was when I was coming through Spokane and I was coming down the Sunset Hill from the airport. He said to me, I want you to go to California and take care of your mother. So I thought that was really strange. I mean, I'd done things in my life and I'd never had an experience like this. So I kind of pushed it off. And then by Freya, when I was coming through Spokane at Freya, that same voice came back and said, Jim, I want you to go to California and take care of your mother. And so I went, wow. Then I was really curious, and so I was holding it. And then at Argonne, the voice came back and said, go to California, take care of your mother. And then I knew I knew it had to be God. Wasn't for sure, but I never had a voice speak to me in such a manner. And then the voice continued on through coming home, told me when to call my mom, told me what day to get on a plane and fly, told me what to take, what not to take. But in the midst of it all, I can tell you this, when we were getting ready to go down to California, I bought a truck from Dave Smith, and I was unloading my truck, and I needed to get out and go to California to see my mom. And this blanket, a heavy blanket, I mean, it was like somebody took a wool blanket, wetted it down, threw it on me, and I couldn't hardly walk. I couldn't unload my truck. And I knew it wasn't God. I knew it was something of Satan. But again, I was never around any type of Christianity. So I finally just threw everything in the trash can, put it under the porch, went into the house, got Cynthia, and said, we got to go to California. So we grabbed our cat and we got in the truck, and we're driving out, and she had to drive because this thing that was on me, I couldn't even handle. So we get about out on the freeway, and we're at the Cataldo, right by the Mission. And at that point, I said, Satan, you're no longer a part of my life. Jesus Christ is now in my heart, and he is the ruler of my heart and my life. I've accepted Christ as my Savior. Things I could feel come through my skin. I could feel things coming through my head. I could feel things coming out of me. So about the bridge, I passed out, and then Cindy woke me up when we got to Ritzville. I knew then that I was no longer in Satan's army, and I was redeemed through Christ. But it was very traumatic. I mean, it was something that will never be able to be taken away from me, ever. I have pictures of my driver's license and my concealed weapons permit. And they're pictures of me, and I call it BC, before Christ, and what I was like. I was an alcoholic for 16 years. I drank a half a gallon of vodka a day. I got to a point where my liver was sticking out, and I was all yellow, and I weighed 250 pounds. I went through DTs and came off that and went right into meth. And I did crank and meth for 12 years. Those pictures show what a miracle God can do, and take somebody like me in the muck and the mire, and showed me a life that I could have and that I could experience that I never thought I could do or ever think I could have. And it was by his grace and by him coming to me and speaking to me. Now, I'm talking about a guy that hadn't opened the Bible, hadn't gone to church, hadn't done anything but drugs. And then he took me away from it. If somebody would have said, hey, this is what I want you to do. Here's a piece of paper, write down what you want, where you want to be, what you want to be at 60 and at 70. Well, right now I'm at 71, and I never thought I'd live this long. In fact, I shouldn't have, and it was by God's grace that got me here. So to be an example to those that want more out of life, then make sure that you got the Spirit, make sure that you're with Jesus, and make sure that you're understanding God's will. And God's will is to have a relationship with you. Your desire leads to you do, and you have to do things. Faith is works. And when you have faith in God and you do what you feel God is telling you what to do, you'll come through and you'll be what God wants you to be.
As I was growing up, just the things that I've gone through, not everybody has to go through. Everybody has their story, but as a child, it was completely traumatizing. I was in and out of homes between the time I was born to the time I was 12 years old. I had over 50 homes that I was living in. My mom was a single parent. My dad was a verbal abusive alcoholic, and the state of Washington is like all for parents for moms, and she would lie about everything. So we were bouncing between aunts and uncles and cars and vehicles, even though we would say, hey, we're living at this particular spot. And my dad picked me up at that particular spot every other weekend. You know, it just became something that we did. It was just like, like, okay, we're going to go. It was like a sleepover. At first it was younger years, like, okay, we're going to go Auntie's house. I didn't think anything of it until I'm like, oh my gosh, we're older and maturing, 7, 8, 9. I'm like looking around like, why are the other kids going to their homes and we don't really have a stable home? And over the course of these first 12 years of my life, I didn't serve God. I didn't know God. I didn't know who he was. And I got into a lot of trouble. I was in and out of gangs. I was just going down the wrong path to the point where I was in a conversation with a police officer, and the police officer said, you have two options. You're going to either end up 6 feet in the ground or you're going to end up in the state penitentiary. And my choices were just internally, I was looking for identity. I didn't know who I was. So my older brother was heavily involved in gangs and drugs, in and out of jail, bad lifestyle. So at the age of about 7 or 8, he pulled me in to these gangs. And what I was doing is I was the mediator. So as a kid, it's like this, okay, they gave me the ability to communicate and coordinate with all these other gangs. So what I was doing is I was the message guy starting off, right? So they would give me a message. I would take it over to the other gang and say, hey, we're either going to we're going to have peace or war, right? And it ended up being, I was this safe blanket for these gangs at a very young age. Well, when I started getting older, I didn't grow much. So I was, 11 and 12, and now I'm dealing drugs because none of the police officers are assuming this kid there's no way. So I have the ability to throw anything I want in my backpack. I have the leverage of doing anything I want. And it started off small, right? All right, hey, you're sending a message to this person. Don't say anything about it. And then it started saying, all right, I'm going to have you do 5 spots and 10 spots and do a little weed. And then before you know it, I was engulfed and just living day to day. I would skip school almost all the time. Coming from like a little bit bigger city like Tri-Cities, man, there's a lot of things that just go under the radar that people have no idea what's going on. And getting looped into that, my mom was completely clueless. She didn't find out until my older brother got stabbed, which she knew he was in and out of that scene, but she had no idea that her twin boys were rocking and rolling and dealing and tied into that entire scene. And then with my older brother, there was a time when he got out of jail. Super excited to see him. I was probably like 12, 13 years old. Super excited to see him. Like, yeah, big brother. And he's like, oh man, cool. Let's go to the store. I'm going to buy you all these clothes. So he takes me and my twin brother to this Bass Pro Shop. So me and my brother are all decked out on gear. We have glasses on. We're all like ready to rock and roll because big brother's going to take care of us. Little did they know that he was high on heroin. He had no idea what was going on. And as the altercation is taking place, I pick up on the fact that this is not going well. So I tell my twin brother, I said, start taking the stuff off. Like, this is not working. My brother pulls a knife and jumps over the counter of this guy, and they start wrestling, and he locks the door. So we're locked in this building and in this store, and my twin brother bolts it to the bathroom, and he's in the fetal position just crying and rocking, and I'm watching this scene with my very eyes like, what do I do? And I just don't know how to respond. The police come, and they end up giving him 1st and 2nd degree robbery, and actually attempted murder or something like that. It was very, very big charges. It ended up going on my twin brother's permanent record because he still had gear on him. So the police came, arrested my older brother. But then at the age of 12, my older brother ended up getting stabbed. He ended up getting jumped by a gang and stabbed. And what happened was my mom made a decision to take me to church and say, we need to change some things. So I remember walking to the four walls of this church and just, obviously just judging it and be like, this guy, what do these guys know? They don't know anything. But then just hearing the message of grace and the love of God for the first time, it hit me to the point where I've never experienced anything in my entire life. And I gave my life to the Lord at the age of 12. And I remember going back home and I stole my mom's Bible. She had this brown Bible with flowers all over it. And I grabbed it and I was like, God, if you were real, I'm going to read this thing and I'm going to just submit my life to you. And as I'm doing that, my mom comes in storming, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I've been praying for years for you to get saved. So simultaneously, I just grab that Bible and I chuck it at her face because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just frustrated. I run out the door and I'm like, man. And God begins to tell me, what are you running for? You said, if this is real, then you're going to submit your life to this. So I remember going back home and saying, Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I need to change my life. I need to completely change my life. And with a matter of a week, my mom picked us up and we moved to a completely new city. So now we're in a new city, new reputation, new everything. And what I recognized now that I didn't know back then, that it was by the grace of God helping me be mature in him and learning and transforming my mind and helping me overcome everything I had, and it was the cards that I was dealt as a child. It empowered me to continue living and continue to just live this life. And even recently in these past couple of years, I've experienced trauma. And our family has gone through a lot of losses. All I wanted for my kids and my family is to not have that 50 home situation. So the past 5 years, we've gone from being either evicted or things like that. And I've just said, okay, God, if you can help me here, you can help me now. And every time I get this thing like, oh my gosh, I'm worthless, or I'm a terrible father, or I'm a terrible husband, or any of those thoughts that are dumb, that we all have dumb thoughts, right? I'm reminded of how much God has taken me out of, and now I have hope that God is going to be there. He is my provider. He loves me. He cares for me. He's not going to leave me or forsake me. He's there. He's present. But God is working. God is moving. And things can work out. He works things out for our good.
My son and I, we ended up losing our home, unfortunately, to a fire. We should have been dead during that fire, too. I guess the smoke was so bad, the firemen were surprised we woke up. But for some reason, I had an asthma attack. Woke up, realized the house was full of smoke. Went rushing in, not even thinking, just grabbed Dewey in a dead sleep and tossed him out the door because I knew trailers went up fast. And as I'm flying out, the ambulance is pulling up and a fire truck, and I'm hacking for air, and the firemen went running in. And later the guy came out and he goes, I'm surprised you guys made it out. You guys should have succumbed to the smoke. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. A few days later, as we're sitting there trying to clean up the house, literally from the middle of my trailer to the back of the trailer, it caved in. Lost my home. Had no water, nothing. And unfortunately, these ladies I worked with turned me into CPS, and I lost Dewey because I didn't have a home, didn't have water, didn't have anything to put him in. And I lost Dewey to the system. I ended up in a tent in my backyard and lost everything, my kid, my home. And I was hopeless. I was broken down. I didn't know what to do, lost my job, was just beside myself. And one night, I finally broke down and I started praying. And something told me to contact the Habitat for Humanity, who I thought worked in our area. Contacted the Habitat for Humanity. They ended up sending me a letter and apologized that they didn't work in our area anymore, but they would contact the company that worked in our area. Judy ended up contacting me from the Fuller Center for Housing, and they ended up, and she didn't know what to do with me. She's like, I've never had a situation like yours. She went to the main council, and the main council didn't know what to do with me. And then next thing I know, she's contacting me because Forrest Van Duren said that he was going to purchase a trailer that he knew was in Osborne that I could put on my property and replace what I had. I had to get rid of the old trailer I had, and Judy was like, we got to do this fast. I ended up praying and going for a drive, and out on the old road, as you're heading into Pinehurst, there's those dilapidated places. Pulled in, and I'm like, I was told to come talk to you guys. I have no money. I have no way to pay you. I need to get rid of this trailer. And ended up tearing my house down, no charge. And so then they ended up moving this trailer in that needed a lot of work. So I've got this trailer. I've got a charge account at the building maintenance that Fuller Center gave me, and I had no idea what to do. Had not really any help. And so I ended up praying again. Because everyone I'd talked to as I had started my walk with God had told me to lay your problems at God's feet. And I was like, okay, all right. So I started praying and got on the internet and saw how to level out a trailer, because you got to do that first before you do anything. So I ended up leveling this trailer, moving stones I probably shouldn't have moved or should have been able to move. Got this trailer all leveled out. And it was like, okay, next thing I need to do, I need water. And a guy at building maintenance who worked there was like, I would like to donate to your program. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And he ended up paying and telling me what all I'd need to fix my place, to get the plumbing going. And I got it all hooked up like he told me to. And then next thing I know, it got cold that night and it broke. I was getting kind of mad at God at that point. I'm thinking, my God, I mean, how far can you knock me down? I can't take this anymore. I'm going to give up. I mean, you give me this, you give me that, and then you destroy that, you destroy that. And I was thinking, what's the point? And I just went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning, and everything in me told me, pull up your big girl pants, go and do it again. So I went up to building maintenance, told them what had happened, got everything I needed again, went back, plumbed it all up. Even got the sewage done that day. And I was like, okay, got this done, ready to go. All right. And it was good. It was going great. Tried to turn it on. Nothing would fire up, and I have a pump system, a well. So as I'm working on the pump, working on my well, trying to get everything up and going in there, Avista ends up calling me because I was going to have the house hooked up to power. And it was going to cost me like $2,900 something to have this done. Avista offered to do it for free, and they buried my line so I'd never have to worry about it again. You're starting to tell me, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not giving up on you. Push forward. And I was like, all right. So I ended up getting the well going, ended up getting water. It was like, yes, okay. And then I finally got a call from CPS that said, we'd like to come, check the place out, see how it looks, and then we'll talk to you about what you need to do to get your son back. And I was freaking out because at that time, like, the bathroom was all torn up, and I'm thinking, oh, they're going to look at this and they're not going to let me have it. They came in and they looked at everything I had done, and she told me what classes I need to go take. And then there was a meeting I had to go to, and then I could get Dewey back. And I broke down, and I knew everything, like a peace came across me. And God was just saying, I'm here. We've got this together. It's ending now. Everything's going to be okay. And I was like, okay, I can do this. This is awesome. And then after that, it was just like every little thing came together. There was this biker group that came through, and they had heard about my situation, and they came to. They did the outside, and they did my skirting, and they ended up like putting stairs on the trailer because I had to have stairs up to a certain code for the building inspector. They did the stairs for me. Next thing I know, Zanetti's is contacting me. They're bringing me this huge dump truck load of gravel, and then they gave me cement to do my snow load cover because a friend of my grandparents had built me a snow load cover at no charge, an 80-pound snow load cover, so I would never have to worry about my house again. We finally had a home. Dewey ended up coming home. It was like God he's been there. And he's been there for us ever since. And even when little situations have happened, he's always there. I know it, I feel it, I can feel him walking with me, and he's just never given up on Dewey and I, no matter how hard it is.
My husband Roger and I were brand new Christians. We just got baptized. This was on September 7th, 1982. We were bear hunting in the Siskiyou Wilderness between Galice and Agnes in Oregon. And we found an old logging road that had huge bear signs on it. So we packed our camper and on our pickup and went down there to spend the week bear hunting. And we went down this road called Big Windy, and it was like 6 miles down, and it turned into like a cul-de-sac type road. And so we went around that cul-de-sac, which was great, so we could shoot across it, and the bear would get us. So we went around the cul-de-sac, and I put the bear bait out and got back in the pickup, looked at the watch. It was 4 o'clock p.m., and I slammed the door, and it was the strangest sensation. The road looked like it was coming up above the windshield. And we looked at each other, and away we went. Later on to find out, we bounced and careened down a 300-foot cliff to the bottom of a dried-up ravine. And Roger got thrown out halfway down. I was trapped inside as it went around and around. In my journey down, I had time to think. I thought of my kids. I thought of everything. And then I thought I was going to die like this. And I started to pray. My prayer was, Jesus, take me now or save me. And with that prayer, I hit bottom. The pickup was upside down. I was right side up. I was pinned in by the back seat. My legs were out the windshield. My body was behind the seat. Gasoline was pouring out all over my shoulder. I was sitting in a puddle of gasoline. I looked out the window, and flames were shooting high into the air. And it was certain death. And I turned my head, and I just yelled, Jesus, where are you? And when I turned back, the flames were gone. I still get chills. And then my husband came, dragging his right leg, and he was covered in blood, had an artery severed, and the bone was protruding, and he had his belt tied around it. And then we worked to get me out. I prayed for Jesus to help me to get the seat off me because Roger couldn't help me, not in his condition. And yes, I gave it one good push, and the seat came loose, and I was able to shimmy into the total back of the pickup. And then I was kind of like standing there, and he was handing me big rocks, and I made a ladder out of the rocks to crawl up to the window because the pickup was at a slant. And when I got to the window, Roger was able to reach in with his good arm and pull me out. I was a lot thinner then. And and he grabbed his rifle, and I didn't look for mine. I looked for toilet paper and matches, and we started to hobble along the dried up creek bed. We saw a huge bear skull. And then I knew, wow, we're not the hunters anymore. We could be the hunted. And we just scrambled until it started to get dark. And once it did get dark, we made a fire out of the toilet paper and matches. Roger dug down in the dirt with his good arm until he hit mud, and we drank mud. And then it was dark, but there was a cliff right behind us. So our dilemma was not yet over. There was a creature on the cliff, and you could hear the footfalls as he ran up to the edge, and rocks would come tumbling down, but we could never see what kind of creature it was. It, could have been a bear, an angel, Sasquatch. Don't know, but it was big, whatever it was. And every time it came to the edge, I started singing, or I should say yelling, Amazing Grace. And I did that all night until a woodcutter came in the morning, found us and saved us and brought us to the hospital. I had a broken radial head on my elbow, a broken rib, third-degree burns to my butt from the gasoline. Roger had 3 surgeries on his arm. They saved his arm. He was in a full body cast because he had a broken hip, a broken leg. A week or 2 later, the pastor from our church went down with a crew to try to retrieve some of our belongings, what was left of the camper. It was like in smithereens. And when they brought my rifle back, the butt on my rifle had a beautiful cross dug into it.
Well, have you shared this testimony with other people before? And did you share it like in a way of hoping that it would help them at some place in their life?
Oh, sure. Yeah. To let them know what God can do. I mean, He can take us from the fire. And literally, that's where I was. I mean, those flames were so high and so intense, I knew that I was a goner sitting in a puddle of gasoline. Jesus is always there. He's not high up above or anything. He's right next to us. He's walking with us every day. Every single day, He is with us. All we have to do is call His name, because there is power in the name. Oh yes, there's a lot of power in the name.